I ended up going there, doing it, getting my first ever prostitute, one and only actually, and then I couldn't even finish. I was so good, I couldn't even keep it up because I was just so fucking high. And then I remember that morning at about 4 o'clock, I recorded a video of myself saying, "Rex, you have a problem. You need to seek help. You need to tell your parents. Do it when you wake up in the morning. Watch this video."
Hey everybody, welcome back to Flip Your Mindset. I am your host, Stacey Uhrig, and today's guest is Rex Henderson, all the way from London, right? Are you coming from London proper or just UK?
Just outside of London.
Cool. Awesome. So guys, let me tell you a little bit about Rex and why he's here today. So Rex is a trauma-informed master coach and a self-sabotage specialist. He works with individuals who have been struggling to break the cycle of self-sabotage. He helps them identify and then transform limiting beliefs, negative thought patterns, so they can cultivate self-confidence, embrace personal growth, and create a positive, empowered life. But guys, as a trauma-trained specialist myself, I know for sure, first of all, I think everybody's had some level of trauma, but I know for sure that people who end up in this space as their profession have gone through something so significant and have healed in such a way or are on a healing journey in such a way that they want to give back, right? So Rex, let's just start right out from the get. What was it that brought you to being a trauma-informed master coach? What's your story?
So what brought me into becoming a trauma-informed master coach was wanting to continue my journey of self-discovery and really understand all the parts of myself and just continue learning about myself and healing those parts and just expanding my knowledge. And it all kind of began from my journey through rehab. So ever since I was a kid, I've struggled with, it started off with food. I'd come home from school and my pockets would be filled with bread because I'd have this kind of fear that I'd get in the middle of a class and I'd get hungry and I wouldn't be able to do anything. So I needed that constant sort of safety mechanism there to feel something different. And then when food wasn't enough, progressed on to smoking weed. That was when I was around 15. So I wanted to be cool, wanted to feel like I belonged somewhere. And weed was the only way that I kind of knew how, because I wasn't that interested in school. Then when that didn't, I never actually really enjoyed smoking weed either. I felt very spaced out, very paranoid, couldn't speak, stuttered loads, but I still did it because I felt like I belonged. And then I actually did cocaine for the first time by mistake. I thought it was MDMA, and I was walking to the pub thinking, dude, you sure that was Mandy? It doesn't feel, I don't really feel much. Then that's cocaine. I was like, oh shit. And then I had had an amazing night, really confident, really energized, talking to everyone, loving it. And then that kind of started on and it progressed more and more and more. And it got to a certain point where I was like, I need to stop this. This is not good. I'm out of control. So I had little segments of sobriety where I basically managed to stop for 3 to 4 weeks. And then something would happen, I get re-triggered, and then I'd start again. I'd fall off the wagon for months. And then I'd get to the point, okay, I really need to stop this. I think I knew I had a problem for about 4 years before I actually sought help. And I think the clearest point where I actually knew how bad it was, I'd had about 4 weeks of sobriety. And I remember driving to this house I was house sitting for and having an argument in my head with this kind of addiction monster that I later drew in rehab. And I remember seeing it in the window of my car, thinking, no, I'm not going to do this. You're not taking control. I'd win. And then 3 seconds later, it'd be whispering ideas into my head. And I'd say, no, fuck off. Sorry for swearing.
No, please. Have you seen the name of my podcast? You're good.
Yeah. You're good. They say, fuck off. You're not winning. And then I said, okay, I'll leave it a chance. I messaged my dealer if he can come. He can come. Ended up going there, doing it, getting my first ever prostitute, one and only actually. And then I couldn't even finish. I was so good. I couldn't even keep it up because I was just so fucking high. And then I remember that morning at about 4 o'clock, I recorded a video of myself saying, Rex, you have a problem. You need to seek help. You need to tell your parents. Do it when you wake up in the morning. Watch this video. It was 6.5 minutes long. I never watched that video until I was about 8 months into my sobriety, and that was 2 years before I actually got sober. And then, yeah, so I kind of kept going in and out of that. And then towards the last 3 months of my basically addiction, I was doing 3-day benders. So I'd do about 3.5 grams of coke a day, stay up for 3 days, sleep about 6 hours, wake up really paranoid, like, oh, I need more, running out. I have like half a bag left. So I quickly go and get more because I don't want to be found out by my parents. Like, why are you sleeping really odd hours of the day? I'd go and get that back. I'd hate doing it. I'd feel really hot. I'd feel sick. I just couldn't do it. I remember in my room, I think I'd run out and emptying out all the bags, and it's going around, hands on my head, just pulling it, feeling anxious, all these feelings and emotions bubbling up that had been numb from the overuse of drinking and cocaine, that I just no idea how to handle, how to even be with. I needed something else to numb it and to quieten everything down. And then I'd run out of money, was quite heavily in debt, and I went out and I was like, I'm really tired. This was maybe mid-afternoon. I went out to the pub, no money, could barely even afford a pint. And I said, okay, after this pint, I'm going home. I'm sleeping. I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. Halfway down the pint, I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like, switch just flipped. I'm like, let's just go. Let's do it, do it, do it. And then I called my brother up because I got too drunk and drove home. I said, Tom, please can I borrow some money to get me out of my overdraft and enough so I can buy a few bags so I can actually get home. And this conversation changed my life, and especially the way he formulated it as well. So first he said, Rex, it's amazing you've tried to get sober on your own. You've had some success in the past, but it's never stuck. I think it's time you actually seek professional help. And I just felt like I was basically just a big balloon that was about to explode. Someone had just let go. And all this pressure and anxiety and fear just suddenly started to release and soften. And I felt like I could actually breathe for the first time in years. And I could receive that. I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I feel seen and actually respected as well. And then he even offered to help tell my parents. And he also said, how would I feel? How do you think he would feel if he transferred me the money and then wakes up in the morning hearing I've wrapped my car around a tree? And hearing those things, like, okay, actually, I can see from his side of things. And it took me a few days to tell them because some other things happened with our dogs. Eventually, I told them, and I was expecting them to be very annoyed, very angry. But instead, they were very appreciative and actually more worried about how much I'd struggled with rather than kind of how it's affecting them. So they're very supportive. We called the rehab. And the day afterwards, I went in, and I went in with this deep need to understand myself. My brother even said to me before I went in, what if you just go to the 12 steps and go to the meeting rooms, try it that way? I said, no, I need to understand why I'm an addict if I'm going to change. If I just go to the meetings, I'll go there for a few months, I'll probably leave. I needed that understanding of why I was the way I was. So I went in, absolutely loved it, was there pushing people. And that's kind of where my love for helping others actually started. So I was helping other people at work. I was poking them. I even thought about becoming a psychotherapist afterwards, but I didn't want to study for 3 years in school.
Yeah.
So I sort of had that on the back burner. Then went through the 12 steps, or 11, because I never got a sponsor with my sponsor. He was saying, go to more meetings, you go to more, do this. I was like, no, hold up. I got sober so I can play golf, live life, and actually enjoy it, not just go to meetings every night. And he used to go to 5 to 6 meetings a week. I actually got him to go to maybe 2 or 3. And then after about 6 months, of going to the meetings, feeling really happy and energized, leaving feeling drained and just grim, I then looked into coaching. And I went through Elementum. It's a 9-month intensive program, coached over 300 hours, learned boatloads of things, and was also coached myself probably around the same amount of time. And that's when my deeper understanding became. I began to understand more and more about myself. And I actually went to my first meeting maybe a month or two ago. And for ages, I wasn't quite sure what was wrong with them, and for me personally. But it all really all the dots were connected in the last one. I believe that people in the AA rooms or the 12-step rooms, firstly, when you go around at the beginning, hi, my name's Rex, I'm an addict, you're reaffirming the belief that that is who you are.
I've heard this so much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Also, them all telling their old war stories about the past, how they go in. It's like, hey, you're hearing all of that, and you're just creating this massive fear around your past and what it's possible, what you're running from. And the kind of visual I got was they're basically running from their pain with basically a massive elastic band attached to it. And that's always going to be there. Because by definition, if you run from something, it's always going to chase
It's so interesting. I have a handful of friends who are sober,
you.
and some of them swear by AA. And it's this extreme polarization because some swear by it and love the consistency of it and love the community of it and love the service that they offer as a sponsor through it. And then I have others who are very trauma informed that are also trauma recovery coaches that feel that it is a very shaming, triggering experience for them because we are not what we do and we are not what we've done. Right. So every time you're going in and you're having to make these statements about who you are, listen, I have a little brain here. I use it all the time with my coaching clients.
Yeah.
Your brain does not decipher past, present, future thoughts. It's whatever you give it in the moment is truth. So if you're sitting down and saying, hey, I'm an addict, the brain's like, oh shit, here we go again. You know, there are parts of experiences that are stored in the brain that are not time bound. And so I can see where, you know, for some people going to AA and making the statement that they are something that they've worked so hard to get through and to have experienced and to have learned from, to then have to keep going back and saying, well, it's not enough because I'll always be defined by this set of attributes or experiences or, you know, decisions. It's not super trauma informed. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to back up for a second because I understand this, but I really want the audience to hear this because they're not in trauma 24/7 like we might be, right? Or thinking about stuff through that lens. So, you know, I know enough to know that substance use, whether it be alcohol, weed, whatever it is, very often starts as this adaptive behavior. And you mentioned it. I wanted to be a part of something. I wanted to be a part of a group of friends. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be connected. As humans, we're hardwired for connection. It's what makes us unique. So when we're growing up and we feel isolated or ostracized, but we see we can be a part of something. Oh, and if it means I have to smoke a lot of weed or a little bit of weed, okay.
Yeah.
And at first it's adaptive because you're getting that need met, but then it becomes maladaptive if it takes over, right? And that actual addiction piece grows. So the question I have for you is, why were you feeling disconnected? What was the void? Like, I'm sure through all the work that you've done, you've been able to start to recognize what was the catalyst for all of this.
So firstly, I love that phrase, the void. I've done a lot of work around that because I've filled my void with many different things. So I think it was just a deep sense of loneliness.
And where
So
did that deep sense of loneliness come from?
it originated when I was very young.
Mm,
Firstly, I abandoned myself. An
mm,
event happened when I was about 4 years old that meant my emotions are unsafe. So I learned to suppress basically my anger and frustration. And as you know, when you suppress one, you suppress them all.
yeah,
So I was walking around as this numb 4 year old, not basically experiencing life. And I'd always look to the situations and scope them out to see kind of get a feel for them. Like, when you're a kid, normally you run into a playground, you go play with everyone. I'd always stand on the outside and try and gauge if it's safe or not to go in. I'd always need to be welcomed in. I wouldn't just go in and basically say hello to people. And then I thought I was helping people by bringing all the kind of outcasts in and trying to make them all feel happy. But I realized when I was going through my training that me trying to get my own needs met through them. Okay,
yeah.
if I meet your needs, if I make you feel welcome, then maybe I'll feel welcome as well.
I have to give you a statement. I have a question for you, but I have to tell you this statement that I came up with a few years ago when I was working with my clients. It just
Mm,
kind of came to me in the middle of the night. When we're young, we tend to shed authentic pieces of ourselves to meet the needs of others so our fundamental needs will be met.
mm,
Right. So we shed,
yeah.
you were talking about parts. So I know we're going to talk about parts because I'm all about the parts. So just
Okay.
imagine what I'm saying. We come in with this self energy, right? This
Mm,
core self essence, if you will, into the world. We all come in with it. And then we start to observe our surroundings, and we know instinctively, innately, we have a number of needs to be met. Keep me clean, keep me fed, keep me hydrated, keep me safe from the elements. But equally as important, if not more important than all four of those things, is I need to know I belong here. It's the connection
mm,
piece. And the moment we sense, even in infancy, that that need may not be met either in the time frame it needs to be met for us or at the level we need it to be met for us, we will then create that part, shed a piece of our authentic self, allow that part to kind of come forward facing, so
mm,
we meet the needs of the other person so that need will be met. So it becomes very conditional. When we're young, we can't flee, we can't fight.
mhm,
And if we're pre-verbal, we can't even fawn, right? So what can we do? We freeze, we disconnect from self, we learn to disassociate because the feeling that we have inside of not having that need met feels like death. It
mm,
feels like I am so worthless and so not enough for you just to meet this fundamental need that is so painful to my core. I'm just going to disconnect
mhm.
from myself. So you said something very, very profound. I've never heard anybody in either my sessions or in my podcast say this. So clearly you're very well informed on yourself, but you mentioned you abandoned yourself at 4 years old.
Yeah.
I know what that means, right? And that's a whole other ball of wax. But why did you abandon self at 4 years old? What was going on that was so painful? What wound was so huge that you disconnected and abandoned from self at 4 years old?
So at 4 years old, I was walking home from like a family walk with our dog, and we lived just across the road to a forest. And being 4 years old, one of my master coaches taught me this, that especially young boys, they're very curious around kind of animals and um, kind of not pain, but basically pushing boundaries. So basically held my dog near the road, waited for a car to come, and then said go. First car missed.
Mm,
I repeated it about 3 times until it happened. And then kind of reality struck. I was like, oh my God, what have I just done? I'm gonna get in so much trouble. Like I can't believe what I did. So I hid, and my mum still doesn't believe I did it, but I can very clearly remember that I did. And then that part of kind of what actually happened, and that reality struck in that I cannot be trusted.
Is
I
that a core belief that you created in that moment?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I can't be trusted. So that's when I began to suppress all my emotions because of that really kind of triggering one. And even a year and a half ago, I was with a girlfriend at the time. We got in a bit of an argument. She wanted me to basically feel more and express more. So she put her hands on me, started pounding my heart to try and wake it up, and smushed my face. And I just felt this immense rage, just wanting to
Yeah.
explode from inside of me. I thought, if I actually let this out, I'm going to push her, I'm going to hurt her. Something's going to happen and I can't come back from. Which I had that belief.
Similar to when you were 4.
Exactly, yeah. And I was consciously
Understood.
fearful of anger from 11 to 21. I was consciously afraid that if someone is going to push me too far, and I'm going to really badly hurt them.
Wow.
So
So
when,
first,
yeah,
I just have to honor you for a second and say thank you for your real, honest, raw understanding of your story and understanding of yourself. Because we're human and we make fucking bad decisions all the time.
yeah,
Period. End of story. We all do it. You cannot show me one person on this earth who hasn't made a decision that they feel bad about. It is so clear to me that wound, we talk about parts, we understand exiles, you and I, but that wound from my seat looks just like tremendous shame, right? And if we're trauma trained, we know shame is like really the most toxic
mhm,
of all
yeah,
emotions.
yeah. So I just want to quickly talk on that shame and this wound. I actually suppressed the memory until I was in rehab. And
Wow.
I learned something quite profound, is that when my body gets hot, it's actually the emotions and stuff is moving around
Oh,
inside of
yeah.
me. So I felt myself getting hot. The first time I wore a jumper to one of the process groups, and the therapist, absolutely brilliant. She saw me rubbing my hands. It's like, Rex,
Mm.
is everything okay? I was like, yeah, it's fine. So she got me to grab a jumper and just squeeze it. And I squeezed it, and I felt this red, fiery ball spinning around on my stomach, going up and down, up and down. And then the memory got brought up, and I was like, it cannot be this. It cannot be this memory. I can't say this. And as I very reluctantly spoke it kind of very quietly, I had a few tears dropping down, which is the first time I cried in like nearly a decade. And then after that, I had like this blue explosion inside of me. And it was the first time I could draw in color since I was a kid.
Mm.
Mm.
It's just so important for people to listen that are listening to understand. This is such a profound interview. And thank you so much again for your honesty, because this is what happens, guys. When we have these experiences at a very, very young age that leave us feeling not enough or unimportant or with this tremendous amount of shame that we may not even know is running the ship, right? We don't even
Yeah.
know. Like you're saying, I had this memory repressed. Like and this is why I do rapid transformational therapy and hypnosis with my clients, though it's very rare that my clients have a memory that is not something that they've accessed in the past. They usually don't have some profound epiphany and something brand new comes up. It rarely happens. Um, it's more of gaining clarity from the experience. And you said it, like in that moment, you created a core belief of, I'm not capable, like I might do bad things, or people are not safe with me, or these things are not safe with me. And that's what I'm helping my clients try to figure out. What is the lens through which you're seeing life?
Mm.
What's the filter that you have on right now that you created from an experience when you were younger, usually before you're 10,
Mm.
that is now hindering your life, not allowing you to express motion, right? Not allowing you to feel. So, first, it sounds like your addiction starts from, wanting to connect, but there also sounds like there was a part of you that didn't know how to feel. And
Mhm.
sometimes people don't understand. Yes, our drugs can numb us, but sometimes they start out by allowing us to feel
Mhm.
because we don't know how to do it. When people have learned the art of dissociation as a form of protection,
Yeah.
they literally can't feel. And when I sit with clients who are disassociated and have found that tactic to work well for them until it doesn't, it's almost always I have to literally pull out a cheat sheet that's kind of similar to this feelings wheel just to give them words. And I actually have a sheet that associates, you said you get hot or you're wringing your hands. I actually have a sheet that associates physical discomfort or physical things that people do, like clenching the jaw or itching the nose or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and what emotion might be associated with that because they're so far removed from feeling
Mhm.
emotions, they don't even have actual language for it,
Yeah. I was
right?
very similar as well. Yeah. I think that's so I've always been quite open and willing to talk about things that some people would say embarrassing. But the way I was able to do it was just completely disassociating from the experience. I remember once my boss was shouting at me for something I didn't even do. And I was just standing there like, I don't care. This wasn't me. Completely disassociated. Wasn't actually taking anything in because I had a massive inability to receive anything. Like
Yeah.
growing up, my entire family would say they love me. They'd say I was a really handsome boy. I was going to be really good looking when I was older, beautiful blue eyes. My belief was that you have to say that you're my family. It's not true.
And your belief was that because
Because I didn't even love myself.
that's right.
My brother told me something that's stuck with me ever since. There are only two loves in the world that never fade: a mother's love for a child and your love for yourself. I was like, that's
Yeah.
not true. I do not love myself.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And do you believe that that experience at 4 kind of started that? Do you feel like you had so much shame from that experience?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. I learned
Yeah.
at that is I'm not safe. I'm I'm an evil person.
Yeah.
I'm not worthy of love.
Mm. And how long did it take you? Like, when did you start to really connect those dots? Because, guys, it's really important as a listener to know he didn't just enter rehab and figure that out in the first week. I mean, this is some profound, heavy, deep
Mm.
shit. So, where and how and when did you get to that level of self, I'm going to say understanding? My friend Charles uses that term all the time. So, where did you get that understanding?
So it definitely wasn't like immediate. It's quite gradual. I did loads of work with my own coach when I was during the program, and it took I don't know, months. We actually did a lot of kind of inner body work, and in my mind's eye, I saw my heart as this just solid rock in like a desolate wasteland.
Mm,
And I even drew it afterwards on just a little lamppost and like a burnt out kind of wasteland. And he got me to try and feel compassion. I was like, I have no idea what that is. And then she took me through a thing of, okay, imagine if your dog gets hurt. Imagine how you feel for that. And I could start to see a little glimmer of what compassion may experience like. And then I connected that to my heart through a little gold thread. And that began to
mm.
open up. And I was continually working with multiple people a week to really push myself and open it up and start to actually feel things and receive things. And even when I used to receive compliments, I'd energetically leave the back of my body because it didn't feel safe. It felt very unfamiliar. So I did this amazing practice of getting all the people and as many people who I've interacted with in the program to send me a voice note of saying good things about me. And then I'd play them. I started off with about 10 seconds and I had to pause it because I'd leave. And then bring that awareness coming back into the body and just practicing stretching those muscles and just trying to open up your heart and actually connect with yourself and be present in your body. That was the biggest thing for me is body presence.
Amazing. And that is I'm so glad we're having this conversation today because that disassociation from self
Hmm.
is so strong. And it is such a real thing. I went to a conference in May in Boston that was run by Bessel van der Kolk. So for people that don't know Bessel van der Kolk, you know The Body Keeps the Score. If you're on the New York Times bestseller list reader, that book's been there forever. He's the author of that book, and he has been running something called the Trauma Research Foundation for 35 years. And they do a conference every year. And this conference happened to be headlined not just by Bessel van der Kolk, but by Gabor Mate and Dick Schwartz, who started
Oh,
Internal Family Systems. And I live 4 hours from there. So I was like, it's kind of a no-brainer. Like I said
yeah,
to my husband, I'm like, it's like going to a concert where it's like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Aerosmith. Like you don't not go. Like you
yeah.
don't not go. So
Sounds
anyway,
amazing.
I go to this. I was like, I didn't even look at what the agenda was. It didn't matter. I was like, I just need to be in the room with these great people for
Mhm.
3, 4 days. And the whole conference, really not the whole conference, but a large portion of the conference focused on disassociation and neurofeedback, which was really, really interesting. But what I've learned working with my clients who have the art of disassociation, it's the only way I can say it. It's such a keen um, coping strategy,
Mhm.
is a handful of them have struggled with weight. And when
Mhm.
they've lost a tremendous amount of weight, they cannot feel it. They can see it. They can see it in the mirror. They know factually that they dropped 5 sizes. They can
Yeah.
see on the scale that the weight is different, but internally they don't feel any different because they're so disconnected from their bodies.
Mhm.
They can't recognize it. Does that make sense?
That does, yeah. That's
It's
really
amazing. And the
yeah.
ones that, these are people who had really some large, big T traumas where there was some maybe physical abuse and they were not empowered or in a position to find a way out of it other than to freeze and disconnect.
Mhm.
And it was their best coping strategy. And when I've taken them through hypnosis and they can literally see, and you were talking about how you visualized your heart and the gold thread, like part of the hypnosis and part of the work that you've been doing for healing is helping you create visuals in
Mhm.
your mind. Because one of the rules of the mind is the mind loves to work with images.
Mhm.
Right. So when I have a client that's reliving an experience where she can actually watch it almost from like a drone's eye view of her own life and actually see, oh my God, in that moment, I literally left my body
Mhm.
because it was the only thing I could do to take A, B, C, or D.
Yeah.
There was no
Yeah.
other option. Right. And
Yeah.
by the way, that was smart. And I
Mhm.
shouldn't feel bad about that because that was the only thing I'm resourced to do. But now I'm 65, right? Maybe I was 7 there, but now I'm 65 and I can get up and fight and I can scream and I can use other resources to protect myself. I'm more resourced
Mhm.
and that's no longer me. Because
Yeah.
sometimes these parts in our mind, like again, the timeline is funky for them. It's not the same as it is for the human experience, the person living the human experience. So it it can feel as though time hasn't passed,
Mhm. Yeah, you can kind of
right?
get stuck in the moment. And it's interesting, what did you say? But I had a thought, something we were taught in Elementum is that trauma gets stuck in the body. And
Absolutely.
if you don't release it there and then, it basically stays with us until we do release it. And the way I was described to me is that if an antelope gets attacked by a cheetah, it will leave its body because it's not safe. But as soon as the cheetah goes off to hunt for another one, it comes back into its body, stands up, big old shake, and then runs off and it's fine.
Yes.
Humans, we eventually come back when it feels safe enough, but we don't release it. It just stays stuck in our body.
Yes. Yes. And you know what? I love that. And Yes, yes, yes. There are a handful of books that people can check out that have to do with that. One obviously is The Body Keeps the Score, but another one that's really great is called Feelings Buried Alive, Never Die.
Ooh, I'll have to check that
Yeah.
out.
It's a good one. So, guys, we're going to do a part 2 with Rex because what I really want to talk about in our second episode with him is now what, right? Obviously, this guy is brilliant. He's got tremendous understanding of self and why he found himself in this journey and how he's on the other side of that journey. And so, what I'd love to be able to do in our next episode is really talk about how he helps support people who are maybe on a journey that he was on before. So, we're going to wrap this episode up. But before we do, I want people to know how they can find Rex. So, if you're on Instagram, you're going to go check him out. It's Rex Haynes Henderson. All of this is going to be in the show notes, so you don't have to grab a pen, but I'm just throwing it out to you. And his website is Befriend Your Beast, which I love. And he has a free discovery call and 20% off of the first people who sign up for him for a container using this podcast name, which is Flip Your Mindset. So I want you guys to go to his website. If his story speaks to you, it's Befriend Your Beast. Is there anything you want to share with us, Rex, as we wrap up this episode?
I think it's been it's been really nice to share more of my story, and hopefully lots of you can take what's needed from here and see that it is possible. And if you are still going to the meetings and you're finding yourself getting frustrated and leaving worse off than you went in, I'm here to let you know you're not alone. There is another option, and either me or someone else, or you can find a different way. You're not stuck there.
Cool. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next episode, guys. So the link to the next episode will also be in the show notes. But for now, thanks for listening. Join you on the flip side.